Opa, καλησπέρα όλους. Σήμερα θα φτιάξουμε λουκουμάδες. Πού είναι η συνταγή? Εδώ είναι. Recipe in the chat. Today we are going to make loukoumades. It's Greek donut balls and a honey sauce, syrup. A lot of things are optional. I will start with the syrup. Here we have, technically it's not a simple syrup. It's 1 cup of sugar, half a cup of water, and a quarter full cinnamon stick. If you don't happen to have a cinnamon stick, you can use like a quarter teaspoon of cinnamon. I'd recommend going to a half, or just sprinkle some cinnamon on top of everything when you're done. It'll give you more consistent cinnamony goodness. This syrup doesn't need to be reduced. If you don't include the honey, you will need to reduce it just a touch, just so it's nice and sticky. Normally, when you hear simple syrup, it's 1 part sugar to 1 part water. That's more of a bartender thing, because in most cooking recipes that call for a simple syrup, you're usually reducing it down by about half. So I sort of just skipped ahead and only used half as much water. Okay, this is mixed up as well as it needs to be. I'm just going to get a spatula without burning myself. Yoink. And that's right. There's about a quarter cup of honey in here, give or take. Off to the side, I'm preheating my oil already. Doesn't this involve yeast? Isn't this like a 3-hour ordeal? Maybe. Let's find out. Okay, so this I'm going to set to slowly simmer. So I'll be using it fairly soon. Over here, I have a whole bunch of slightly melted chocolate chips and some cocoa butter wafers. The cocoa butter is actually complete overkill because these are milk chocolate chips, and they can just melt on their own. And I'll be dunking some of the loukoumades in here. Nice. Yeah. Warmed up Nutella is also a big hit out east, apparently. I'm not going to worry about a double boiler. I'm just going to warm it up on very, very low heat. As you can see, those milk chocolate chips, they were on a slightly warm element, and they're mostly melted already. So that won't take too long. The oil it needs to be at about 350, and I bring this up all the time. When you are dealing with oil, thermometer is your friend. You will need to be fiddling with the temperatures fairly often. You want to keep your oil at a consistent temperature. If your temperature gets too high, just remove the pot from the heat. If you need to cool it down very quickly, just add some more oil. Do not ever start off with oil no more than halfway up the side of your pot. Because when you throw things in here, when you gently place things in here that have any amount of water, it will foam up. And we don't want oil to splatter around, especially when if you have open burners. Because splattered high temperature oil and open flame is hilarious. If you do happen to start a kitchen fire, bust out your Class C fire extinguisher. You can douse the flames in salt. In theory, baking soda also works. A big, heavy, damp towel works. Do not, under any circumstances, splash water on a fire in your kitchen, especially if there's oil or grease involved. This is going to take probably 10 minutes to warm up, which is about perfect. So here we have our bowl, and we're going to start off with 250 grams de cosa penida gramaria alevri, all-purpose regular flour. Now, for those of you paying attention to the density of flour, 250 grams is close enough to 2 cups. Technically, 1 cup of flour, all-purpose flour, is normally around 1 cup is 120 grams. So close enough. And if you're off by a few percent, it's not going to make a difference. We're not making a delicate French pastry here. This is a pretty hearty donut kind of dough. Before I start anything, though, I need to get my yeast proofing up. Here we need about 10 grams. We should call it 2 packages, or a tablespoon and a bit of active yeast. I keep my yeast in the fridge. I know it's good. I know it's still alive. It's still with us. It's still active. I need 3 teaspoons of sugar, so a tablespoon. And I'm just going to put that straight in with the yeast. I'm going to take a tablespoon of the flour and also help feed the yeast. Yoink. Yeast, sugar, 1 tablespoon flour, and I'm going to put in my water, which I believe is 1/2. It's just under a cup. Technically, it's 7/8 of a cup because it's 220 grams of water. I mean, I could fill a cup and take out 4 tablespoons. 3 tablespoons? 4. And that's close to all the measuring I need to do. Over in with the flour, I'm going to add my salt. 2 grams. Vio gramaria. So about 1/3 of a teaspoon of salt. Close enough. I love the spoon measurements in Greek because it's a soup spoon and a dessert spoon. And normally, whenever we do any sort of desserts or pastries, we use a neutral oil, but we're going Greek today, so here's my olive oil. 2 tablespoons. 1, 2. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now, we should be adding the ingredients after the dough is mixed up. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to quickly whisk this up. I used warm water. This will take about 10 minutes. Once the yeast is active, and this doesn't need to be perfectly mixed. I don't need to be using my little mini balloon whisk. I'm using a Danish whisk. Fancy, fancy. Not necessary. But I will be using that to mix up my my dough in just a minute. And a whole scraped vanilla bean or 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. You can put that pretty much anywhere. I'm just going to put it in with the flour. This is a very, very, very forgiving recipe. Unlike me, I hold grudges forever. Is that all our ingredients? We didn't go mise en place today. I have flour, water, sugar, active yeast, vanilla, oil, salt. Perfect. In the pot off to the side, we have our syrup ingredients: 1 cup of sugar, half a cup of water, 1/4 cup of honey, stick of cinnamon. And on my third burner, I have like 1/3 of a cup of milk chocolate chips and a 1/4 cup of cocoa wafers, which again, if I was using dark chocolate, like actual chocolate chips, not milk chocolate chips, the cocoa butter would be a lot more required. Necessary, mandatory, obligatory, all sorts of atories. If you have milk chocolate chips, you just melt them. A low temperature though, we don't want anything burning, we don't want anything sticking to your pot. If you have a microwave, you can always zap it for 20 to 30 seconds. I have a microwave, it's a little small. This chicken is almost done, I swear. It's the biggest microwave I own. That popping you hear in the background is a little bit of water that was in the bottom of my pot. I hope that's all it is. Yeast is doing a wonderful job of yeasting up. Once this foams up a little more, I'm going to mix it into my flour. I'll make a dough. I will knead it until smooth. Even with a little more flour or a little too much water, you should not need to make a whole lot of adjustments, because we're getting close to 100% hydration just because of the ratios. We have about 250 grams of flour to 220 grams of water. It's like 90-ish. That will, and with the plus or minus 5%, that will form a dough no matter what. It will come together. So once the dough comes together, we just cover it, leave it alone for 2 hours. Then we scoop it out, form it by hand or with a couple of spoons. Form it by hand or with a couple of spoons. Just transfer it from 1 tablespoon to the other. Dunk it in the oil till golden brown, and remove, put it on a paper towel lined plate just for a couple of minutes, and then drizzle the honey syrup or soak those little suckers in the honey syrup, or however you want to doctor up your Loukoumades. Just getting my paper towel lined plate ready. Right about now is the obligatory, mandatory, and required by law complaint about the size of my kitchen. And that's about all the complaining I'm going to do today. I'm thankful I have a kitchen, no matter how tiny it is. You'll find that when the syrup with honey comes up in temperature, the sugar will absorb fairly well into the liquid. When it cools down on the Loukoumades, you might get a sugary, crunchy-ish layer of sugar. Oh darn, that's kind of exactly what we want. The honey will keep it flowing though. If you want to keep your simple syrups with flavor a lot more pourable, you can always add some corn syrup, which I personally don't like to do. I'm going to transfer the yeast over to my flour. And with my spatula, I'm just going to scrape the inside of the bowl because there's a lot that sticks to the bowl. I bring this up fairly often. I wonder how many recipes take into account your ingredients sticking to bowls and measuring cups. I know on a large scale it won't make a difference, but on a small scale, I think it might. You can stir this up with a stick. You can stir this up with a fork. You can stir this up with a spatula. I'm obsessed with my Danish whisk because I just got it from the Amazons the other day. It came as part of a bread making accessory and doodad kit. This works phenomenally well with higher hydration doughs.
Would you say it was a gadget?
I would say this is a gadget. I absolutely would.
Is a whisk a regular whisk a gadget?
A regular whisk is not a gadget.
Well, then why is that a gadget?
Because this is not a common kitchen implement.
Yes.
This is all like fancy and frou-frou.
If you were in Holland.
If I was in Holland, would it be baked? This is the wrong kind of baking I'd be doing if I were in Holland. Apparently, the red light, speaking of which, here's some Twitch-friendly content because we're more than 10 minutes in. The red light district is closed down to foreigners. Apparently, you can't go get all sorts of baked. Seder, great to see you on. I'm just going to get my hands dirty here. Every so often, I'm going to scrape down the side of the bowl. I can use my silicone spatula. Silicone. What I do recommend you use, though, is an actual flexible bench scraper like this. These are great for scraping down the bowls and the bowls. Right? I'm going to get my hands dirty in here. Okay. So I'm just going to work this into a smooth dough. Do I need to get a little closer? There we go. If you are completely convinced that you need a little more liquid, just a tablespoon or two at a time. Seder, thank you so much for the sub. 27 months. Good Lord. Have I been streaming that long? If your dough is shaggy like this, and you've been working this together for more than a minute, you might want to add a splash of water. Or just keep working it. I'm going to keep working this. But feel free to rip this apart to expose some moisture inside your ball of dough that's forming. I might have eyeballed the 2 cups of flour a little too much. Eyeballed it a little too aggressively. And as always, your flour's moisture content will vary by brand, by your local humidity, probably your altitude and temperature, what planet you're on. I mean, the list of variables is, well, there's more than 2 variables, that's for sure. This is so close to coming together, but I think it needs just a splash of warm water. That was just a tablespoon. Going to work this in now. I believe that will do it. Okay. As long as your bowl looks fairly clean and your dough is coming together, as long as nothing is sticking to the side of your bowl, you're definitely on the right track. Okay, so now I'm just going to knead this for a couple of minutes until I have a smooth ball. You don't need to oil this. You don't need to do anything fancy with it. You don't need to put this in a warm environment. Room temperature is great. Lint-free towel on top or some cling wrap. Just covering the bowl is all you need to do. My oil just, oh my gosh, 46 months. DJ Nuvo, thank you so much. This could use another splash of water, I think, but good enough. I'll just keep working this. Who am I kidding? This needs a splash of water. Okay, one more, just a little bit. What you don't want to see is a whole lot of this. Is the color even showing up? You don't want to see this like soupy, floury, doughy, well, soup at the bottom of your bowl. I was intentionally rubbing the dough ball into the liquid to make that happen. You can hear that squelching sound. Here we go. So hot. You'll need to make sure to break apart your dough to get that liquid to penetrate all the way through. And make sure to rub down the side of your bowl, pick up any extra moisture that's on the side. See, if you add even like half a teaspoon too much liquid, it becomes a little awkward to work with, but it comes together very quickly. Don't be too distracted by that squelching sound. Guess I can turn up the temperature just a bit. Now the syrup needs to be brought to a boil and stirred occasionally. Reduce the heat to medium-low and let it simmer for 3 to 5 minutes. Again, stirring occasionally. Set aside and allow it to cool. So I'm going to make sure that that happens right now. I'm going to bring it up to a boil while I work this dough. Fun things that you can add to the dough: some Grand Marnier, some lemon zest, some lemon juice, lemon extract. Lemon extract is probably easier to work with. I think that's mentioned in the notes. I don't think Grand Marnier is a Greek invention, although could be. Oh, for the kneading itself, all I'm doing is just pulling from one side back, folding it down, pressing down with my palm. I'll show you what this looks like on a flat surface. Just pull this back, my palm, press down, pull back, press down, maybe give it a turn, pull it back, press down, and just keep doing that. Now you will maybe see some discolored spots. That's where there's a higher concentration of olive oil, which is a great reason why you should be using a neutral oil. And it's not a bad idea to just put all of your liquids in with the yeast before you add it to your flour. And then start off with a whole. Start off your dry ingredients in a bowl. And this is the way pasta is normally made. You create a well in the middle of your moat of flour. Pour your liquid in the middle and just start stirring and slowly pull the flour into the wet stuff. And that's a good way to make a more consistent dough. In this case, I really don't care. You don't care. It's going to need this for another minute.
Looks really tough.
It might look a little tough. I could add a little more water to it. As far as I'm concerned, this is fine.
Okay.
I don't know if you all heard the comment that it looks really tough. It is kind of tough. I'm going to look at the replay after to see just how eyeballed those cups of flour were. So I think they were pretty darn eyeballed. Yeah, they were very eyeballed. Yeah, you know what? I am gonna add a little more water to this. This seems very surprisingly dry. That's just like a teaspoon, which should be more than enough. Like all told, we've added maybe a tablespoon and a half of extra water. We're squelching. It's so hot. As usual, you can check the replay on YouTube since I cannot do video on demand on Twitch. Because of adult content classification, I mean because of music copyright reasons. I do music on Twitch, which means I can't do video on demand for any of my content. I mean, I suppose I could register and remove myself from the DJ program 3 times a week. I'm not interested in doing that because I know I'll mess it up once and then I'll get all the copyright strikes against me. Okay, I will show you what the syrup is looking like right now. I mean, there's not much to tell. It's a simple syrup. There's a bit of foam here. Mostly because of the honey. This is unpasteurized. Ooh, neat. Unpasteurized raw honey. So I'm just going to give this a couple of quick stirs. I'm going to reduce to medium low and let it simmer for 3 to 5 minutes. This will thicken up a bit. Medium low. And my oil is conveniently just hitting 350. Yeah, this dough is a lot easier to work with now. Like I said, I added maybe a tablespoon and a half. If you want to avoid situations like this, weigh your ingredients. But even then, like I said before, Your brand of flour will have a different moisture content than mine. Okay, so this is nice and smooth. Smooth enough. Nothing is stuck to the bowl, nothing real. Thunk. Would you just cover this with a tea towel? And through the power of internet magic, snap. Oh my God, mind blown.
That was so slick.
How slick was that?
That was so slick.
Right? Okay, so my simple syrup is simpling it up. From here, we can do, there's a 2-spoon method, which I will demonstrate with a couple of new spoons. I'm just going to stir my syrup a bit. Do not lick any of your spoons when you're dealing with melted sugar. It's a lot higher temperature than you'd think. It's very easy to burn your mouth. That is not an eggshell fragment, shush. No eggs in this recipe. Okay, I'm gonna have a bowl with some water in it because I'm either going to form these with wet hands or with 2 spoons. So what I'm gonna do is, this is gonna be a little tricky. Okay, you can pick up a spoonful of your dough and just transfer it from one spoon to another. And you can form your, how dry is this? No, that's fine. You can form your ball doing this, using 2 spoons. I'm going to lower it into my pot of oil with my slotted spoon, but really, to make the smoothest balls, just roll them by hand. Okay, the oil is 355 degrees. Going to very quickly roll some of these up. This one is going to be a little on the awkward side of things. I should turn my fan on. See, there's some creases on the bottom of this ball, so I'm just going to roll it and press down with a bit of firmness, and that's going to get rid of the majority of the creases. That's the worst side. I'm going to wet my hands so these balls are easier to work with. And you can see these cook up pretty quickly. Now, because of the wetness from the spoon or my hands, we're going to get a little bit of splatter. You want your hands to be a little wet so the dough doesn't stick to it. You don't want your hands to be dripping wet. And these balls will magically, usually magically, flip themselves over. I'm only making a small batch here. This is a half batch. And I think for me, I'm guilty of making these too big. But once they turn, okay, golden brown like this. This one needs just a few more seconds. And then it's ready. Don't crowd your oil. For the rest of these, I will make much smaller. But it's fun to see them spinning themselves over, flipping themselves over automatically, auto-magically, if you will. My cousin Mike is looking at a truck. This is perfect. This one's completely perfect. I'm going to put my paper towel lined plate over the oil. So this way, no oil drips and lands on the element. So yeah, cousin Mike is opening a Loukoumades food truck. That's the plan anyways. So we're gonna have to compare recipes. Maybe he'll do a live stream from his truck one of these days. That'd be fun. This one was way too big and it split along the seam, which I'll show you right here. How fun is that? They're like little plata shoes. Cabbage shoe pastry, what? Okay, so this one is done very soon. And then I have the normal size balls coming up. My syrup has been simmering for a good 3 to 5 minutes, so I'm going to let it cool down. My oil temperature is still at 350. Do not let the balls touch until they start to brown up, because they might stick together. If your balls stick together, it's a good indication it's time to change your undies, take a shower, all of the above. Ew. The chocolate, I believe, is melting, so I'm going to find my super cute high temperature whisk. I'll show you what this looks like. We have a layer of oil on top from the cocoa wafers. So I just want those cocoa butter wafers to fully melt. I mean, the milk chocolate is clearly melted. Yeah, I'm taking that off the heat now. If you've seen these flipping themselves over yet, this one over here just did. This one, camera left just did. Camera right? Clima, good to see you on. And our our temperature is still, it just dipped under 350. I should raise the temperature just a touch, but this is going to be done in the next couple of minutes. This is the exact color you want. Nice golden brown. I think it's time for me to hydrate. That's the good stuff right there. Looks golden brown. Now they're almost ready. I mean, I could take these out now, but I want to give them just a touch more color. Okay, well, those are finishing off. I'm just going to take my good one here. I'm just going to run it in melted milk chocolate. Yum-o. Yeah, the bottoms are still a touch, just a touch light. Oh, this is the oil that I've used a few times now. Eric Takes Naps, welcome, welcome. This oil I ran through a coffee filter earlier, and the oil, I can use this at least 4 more times. If you happen to have commercial effing Izzy. Hey, hey. Glad you're enjoying the show. If anyone ever has any requests for a specific recipe, a specific ethnicity, flavor profile, technique, you name it, as long as the ingredients aren't crazy expensive or super obscure, I'm happy to cook anything and simplify it so anyone can do it, even this guy. Again, paper towel is completely over the oil. So if anything drips down, I'm not going to start a fire. As long as you're not dripping water into your oil, it's not going to hurt you. So don't be afraid of it. When you're frying things in your frying pan, any seasoned home cook or chef, and in my world, there really is no difference. The only trick, the only thing to watch out for, as I catch my thermometer, the only thing that's interesting is take your food and lay it away from you. So if I have like a piece of steak, I'm going to put one end in and just lay the rest away from me. So if any oil splatters up, it's splattering that way, not this way. So you'll see people that seem to be pretty darn fearless around oil um, that's the reason why. Like once you know how oil works, you really shouldn't be afraid of it. Now, yeah, you should always be careful around it. F and Izzy, I was very, very strict keto for 3.5 years, and I have all sorts of desserts that are bread adjacent that have no flour in them. So if you want to check for keto stuff, I don't think I specifically labeled them as gluten free, but almost everything that's keto on my site is uh, is gluten free. Now there is a keto bread recipe that explicitly uses vital wheat gluten. That's not good for you. Oh, just sweet chaffles. Sweet chaffles are the way to go. Okay, so here are a couple of balls that were dipped in the
Yeah, but
chocolate.
they're not deep fried.
Oh, deep fried, deep fried.
I'm trying to think of something. Unfortunately, Yorkshire pudding still has flour.
You can do things with potato croquettes and deep fry those. And if you work really, really, really hard at it, and you live in the States and have access to allulose, you can make sweet ones. One of my university buddies um, was diagnosed as having celiacs, and I used to make treats for him. I had a really, really, really good cinnamon bun recipe, and I don't think I have it on the blog, but I'll see if I can dig it up and post it because I occasionally get a request for um, gluten free. But usually the keto stuff is more than enough to keep people happy. Yeah, this isn't hot enough for me to burn myself. Here's fully dunked. There's a little ball. Again, adding the cocoa butter wafers was a complete overkill. When you're playing with melted chocolate, if you need to temper it, that's a great reason to add your cocoa butter wafers. You could, um, yeah, you could do the Wonder Bread chaffle in a deep fryer. It might fall apart, but it should work. It should work. Make a note of that. I'll give that a try sometime. Okay, now this syrup is going to be pretty darn hot. Don't do what I did. Don't test things by putting your hand on it, see if you burn yourself. Oh, those chefy types. Always being the stupid. Okay. So this one, I'm just going to completely drown in the syrup. And the other way to do this is just to simply drizzle, faux shizzle, a bit of syrup on top. Feel free to be as heavy-handed as you want. Usually you'd get an order of maybe 6 to 8 of these. You don't. I mean, if it's your full-time gig, I understand. Probably a smart move. I rarely get accused of being smart. Um, so here they are. I'm gonna probably snap a picture of this. I'm gonna grab my camera right now. Yeah. I'm gonna do all the things. And by camera, I mean phone. Question from the studio audience was, can I sprinkle some powdered sugar on these? Yeah, absolutely. Also cinnamon or cocoa powder. You can roll these in nuts or sprinkles, Smarties and M&Ms, you know, what have you. I'm going to take a couple of pictures of these, not in shadow.
Canadian Smarties.
Canadian Smarties, not US Smarties. There is a difference. Not all balls are the same size. Deal with it.
That's quite common.
It's quite common. I have intentionally made small balls and large balls. I will go put a couple of these on a plate for the incomparable DJ Nouveau. You want powdered sugar on these?
No, it's not necessary.
Cinnamon?
Nope.
You're not giving me a break. You want pork?
Yes, please.
We'll probably roll it now. I am also going to try one of these sweet balls. Just like Chef used to make. It's deep fried dough with sugar. I mean, how can you go wrong?
Yum.
Yes, Seder, that's exactly the takeaway. So here's something else you can do. Since I mentioned it, I will demonstrate it. The cinnamon stick and the honey syrup really does come through. And if you really want that extra bit of cinnamon, you can always, cinnamon not garlic, you can always sprinkle. If you're going to sprinkle, sprinkle from super high up here. When you sprinkle from way too close, this happens. You get a lot of cinnamon. If you salt bay from, low Earth orbit, you get a much more even distribution of cinnamon. These little shaker cups are super handy. You can get them at your local restaurant supplier or I guess Amazon, maybe Etsy. You can see the chocolate sauce is absorbing most of this. That's just cocoa powder. And if you want to get really fancy, what you can do with any of these shaker things, I'm just looking for something appropriately sized that I can get dirty. Good enough. You can cover something like so and sprinkle on top, and then like magic you'll have this nice clean separation. Ta-da! So you can use like a flat piece of paper, like a square, something with a sharp edge on it. By sharp I mean straight, not actually cutting sharp. Something that'll just deflect your powder to one side, And you can do all sorts of fun things with presentation like this. Like I could have a different powder and sprinkle it onto the side, or do like a 50-50 thing. It's really not that hard. A little bit of effort goes a long way when it comes to presentation. Normally, I don't fret about presentation unless it's really, 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 really ridiculously easy. Did I say really enough there? Unless it's really, truly, epically easy to do, and the results are huge. And then I'll show off. This channel isn't here for food porn. This is for, you can make this at home. This is as simple as possible, and I don't want anyone to feel, I hate the word intimidated, but it's the closest thing there is. I don't want anyone turned off of trying to make this stuff at home. And the real goal is to save everyone money. So other than the oil itself, this is very cheap. You don't need to use honey. You can just make a simple syrup, 2-to-1 sugar to water. I know technically it's not a simple syrup, deal with it. And then you can add whatever flavor extracts you want. Something like lemon, maybe pineapple. I've actually got honey extract for flavoring. Caramel, mango would work, peach, pralines and cream, all sorts of good things. And you can always add booze to the dough. And to the syrup. So I'm going to have this one. Need syrup. I haven't seen under the hood here. This dough was mixed up about 40 minutes ago, almost doubled in size. So in another hour, this will be ready to make a full batch. What you saw was just 1 cup of flour, and that made like 4 servings. I find in general, 1 cup of flour is good for 3 servings of whatever you're making. Annie G, thanks for the follow. And I think that's it. I'm going to end the recording here. Don't run away. Thanks for tuning in. F and Izzy, thank you so much for tuning in. This will be on YouTube tomorrow morning if you want to catch the first bit. Raw footage, unedited, the way God intended. Cheers. Simple ingredients, no gadgets, no fancy techniques. Be mindful of using oil. Don't overfill your pot. Don't throw ice cubes into your oil. Water gets all sorts of foamy and oil. Be careful about that. Again, don't run away. We're going to fire up some games. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I'll be right back. Oh, and because I interrupted myself, the Discord is the best place to reach me. If you ever think you're going to be in the greater Winnipeg region and want to be a member of the studio audience, or the green room, or the casting couch, or even guest cook with or without me right here in the kitchen, all you need to do is send a self-addressed stamped envelope to this guy, care of this place. And I'm serious, I will hook you up. Even if it's not a streaming night, please let me know. Come by for food. I'm always happy to meet people and feed them. The Discord is the best place to reach me. There's a section for food, a section for music, a section for arts, my stuff, your stuff, questions, requests, you name it. And I love it when people post their food and their creations. It's all sorts of fun. And also follow DJ Nuvo. critters and music. All sorts of DJing goodness. Okay, I'm off. Don't run away. Don't run away.